YouTube, welcome back. Today we're continuing with the How to Build Muscle series. Okay, so if you haven't checked the previous videos, do go and do so. We've been through nutrition, the basics in more detail. We've been through training, again the basics in more detail. Now we're going to pull away from nutrition training and look at, let's say, things within our lifestyle. Okay, but more importantly, those things in relation to our recovery. Okay, when it comes to adding muscle mass, recovery is key. If you don't recover well or well enough, one, you're not going to get the adaptation or as good of an adaptation building muscle mass that you're after, and two, you're not going to be able to train as well. Okay, and we know that from training comes the stimulus that is to build and add muscle mass, right? So recovery plays a huge role in our ability to build muscle. So I'm going to walk you through in the next couple of videos things we want to be looking for outside of training, and a little bit nutrition. I will cover nutrition just very shortly, but things to look for outside of those two things mainly to make sure that recovery is on point. Okay, the main factor we really need to consider away from nutrition training when it comes to recovery is sleep, and that's going to be the majority of this video. Okay, now sleep is hugely important, right? Whether you want to build muscle mass or whether even you want to just retain muscle mass. So let's say you're in a deficit trying to drop body fat. Okay, but we're going to focus more on that obviously building side of things. But whichever of those goals, sleep is so key. Okay, and sleep is going to play a huge part in that. And also, therefore, because it plays a part of recovery, your ability to perform, train well in the gym. Too many people simply do not take sleep seriously enough, do not get a good enough quality sleep. I'm going to walk you through very quickly in this video, because I have done a whole video on it in itself, but very quickly, checklists to make sure that we're making sure our sleep is as good as it can be. Okay, so when it comes to sleep, some of the main things we want to consider. First and foremost, routine. Getting good quality sleep is all about your routine. Okay, so routine sort of day to day, which we'll come on to, but routine also, those sort of 2 to 3 hours leading up to actually going to sleep. Okay, so in terms of routine day to day, what I mean by that is consistent times. So consistent times that you're going to sleep, consistent times that you're waking up. So day to day, I'll try and keep that within like an hour window. Okay, simply put, if we're getting a good routine, that's basically going to help our body in terms of getting to sleep and waking, right? Secondly, within this 2 to 3 hour window, there's a few things we want to be doing. We want to be minimizing artificial light. Okay, so stuff like lights, lamps, whatever it might be. We want to try and minimize them and match them with the light outside. Okay, naturally your body's going to fall in a rhythm of going to sleep, waking up with the natural light. Okay, so we want to try and mimic that with our artificial light inside. Okay, so again, when the lights outside drop, try and drop the artificial light. If you do need lights on, try and keep them as dim as possible. Similarly to that, blue light. So blue light is stuff like phones, computers, monitors, iPads, stuff like that. We want to try and minimize or eliminate blue light. Okay, blue light actually reduces or suppresses your melatonin production. Melatonin basically being the major sleep hormone. It plays a huge role in sleep and getting to sleep, right? So if that's suppressed, that's going to massively have an impact on our ability to sleep well. So we want to try and minimize or eliminate blue light. Okay, if you do need to use things such as phones, computers, I would try and get like a blue light filter on them. There's apps that you can look for. That way, you're limiting the blue light to a degree while still being able to use those appliances. Next, we have cool temperature. You want to think of your room as like a cave. Okay, so it wants to be dark and it wants to be relatively cool. Your body has to drop a couple degrees in terms of temperature to promote good sleep, right? So basically, just try and keep your room relatively cold. And then lastly, just make sure you are trying to relax in those last couple of hours before you go to sleep. Sleeping is a relaxed state. Okay, if you're going to sleep stressed, wound up, 100 things running through your head, you're just not going to sleep very well. Okay, so make sure whatever you're doing before you go to sleep is stuff that you find relaxing, where you can wind down. Secondly, we're going to talk very, very shortly about stress. Okay, now, very simply put, being in a stressed state consistently is just not going to be favourable for your goals of adding muscle mass. Okay, in an ideal world, the only time we'd be in a stress state would be in the gym, right? When we're training, that's a physical stressor, that's putting stress on our body. After that, we want to try and be, let's say, as much of a relaxed state as possible to then let our body recover as well as it can from that physical stress of training. So when it comes to stress, all I would simply do and try and do, and again, this is real life, it's difficult, we've got work, we've got relationships, we've got things that are going to cause stress around us, right? So all I would try and do is, where possible through the day, or at least as many times through the week, especially on an evening, looking as we just talked about sleep, we're trying our best to de-stress and find ways to relax, right? Whether that is, you might be gaming, it might be reading a book, it might be going outside for a walk, stuff like that. Whatever it is, as often as we can, we're trying to do these things to help us relax, de-stress, to therefore recover as best we can. Thirdly, food/volume. Okay, so this is looking at training and nutrition. Spoken about that a lot in the previous video, so do go watch them. Going to very, very, very briefly touch on it. And all I'm going to say is, one, food-wise, if you're in a surplus, you're going to be fine anyway, okay? But we simply want to be making sure we're eating enough to be recovering as best we can, okay? Protein, carbohydrates, going to be the best macronutrients for that. But we're basically in simple terms, we'll be making sure we're eating enough, okay? Again, if you're in a surplus, that's going to be fine. Volume. So training volume. Again, we want to make sure we're not doing too much volume that we can't recover from, right? So simply put, again, if you're noticing things like you're not recovered by the time you come to train again, so you train hamstrings on Monday and you come to train hamstrings again on Wednesday or Thursday and you've still got quite bad DOMs in them, it might be that your volume's just potentially a little bit too high within that muscle group, okay? And maybe you then need to adjust things to make sure that you can recover from that amount of volume that you're doing, okay? Or reduce the volume so you can recover from it, okay? These two things will often come hand in hand. As you drive volume up, potentially over time, you might also then need to drive food up alongside that to help the recovery process. So there you have it. They're the basics of recovery. And like I said, recovery is very, very important when it comes to adding muscle mass, okay? If we can't recover well, we can't adapt well, build muscle mass well, and we can't train well. Training is where we create that stimulus for the adaptation, okay? So make sure you take your recovery, very, very seriously, if not more seriously than your training. If you did find the video helpful, please do drop a like. If you've got any questions, throw them down below. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.